For Rachel Ben David, this day was supposed to be ordinary. Some last-minute shopping in Jerusalem, a quick "it'll be fine" to her husband, an 8 a.m. flight from Tel Aviv to Athens, then a connection. And that's it, Paris. Holidays with her sister. Time to breathe. From trauma, from routine, from life in a country where even summer can smell like an air raid siren. For the Air France crew, it was just another flight. An Airbus A300. International staff. 80% of the passengers were Jews from France and Israel. A few Americans, a German couple. One elderly English woman. Children playing in the aisle. A flight attendant pouring orange juice. In the background, La Vie en Rose on the cabin radio. For the world, it was supposed to be just another summer day in 1976. But history doesn't know ordinary days. Not for people whose lives turn in a single moment into a dot on the geopolitical map. 12:30 p.m., a few minutes after takeoff from Athens, a scream. The cockpit is seized. The passengers still don't understand. They still want to believe this is a drill, that maybe it's a mistake. But then you see the gun. You see the hijacker's eyes. And you already know, this is not a delay. This will not be a story you tell over coffee. This will be a test. For a family, for a country, for the world. On the other side of the sea, Israel. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin gets the first report. Defense Minister Shimon Peres goes through the passenger list. Mossad reconstructs the flight path. And in the command room, the countdown begins. Not of hours, of lives. But this still isn't war. It's still just a plane in the sky, and a woman who is holding her child, not knowing if they will land. And a flight steward who scribbles his passport number on a napkin because he has a feeling it might be needed. And a passenger, an Auschwitz survivor, who hears the question, "Are you Jewish?" And for a moment the world stops. Not in New York, not in London, not in Moscow. In the cockpit of an Airbus over the Mediterranean. This is the beginning of one of the most spectacular rescue operations in history. But before the Hercules transports take off, before the entry of Sayeret Matkal shakes the world, before we hear the name Yoni Netanyahu, we have to go back to that moment, to that June morning, to the plastic toy falling onto the cabin floor, to the baggage with a grenade inside, to a man who was supposed to fly to Paris and woke up in Entebbe. Hey, is this still a journey or already a test? Is the world still the world if selection is back in the airplane rows and a flight attendant is holding her breath because someone is asking for your last name? Let's go back to that moment. It starts like any other day. A holiday flight, June sunshine, flight attendants handing out drinks, children playing in the aisle. Passengers sleep, read, plan their connection in Paris. But no one knows that this flight will stop being their trip and become a story their grandchildren will tell. June 27, 1976, Air France Flight 139 from Tel Aviv to Paris. Airbus A300, stopover in Athens. 4 people board. 2 Germans, 2 Palestinians. They bring on board fear, gun barrels, and politics. A few minutes after takeoff, they hijack the plane. It's not just about people. It's not just about politics. It's a time when the world is tired of disasters and, at the same time, is learning a new era. The era of international terrorism. Flight 139 was only one of dozens of cases, but it ended differently than all the others. Because this time, a force entered the game that had no intention of waiting for diplomacy. Israel. What did the world look like in 1976? In the background, a psychological war. The Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union are dealing the cards. The Palestinians, backed by Syria, Libya, the USSR, are turning their struggle for independence into a global campaign of fear. Bombings, hijackings, executions. For the West, this is the new normal. For Israel, an existential threat. Israel, a country still reeling from the Yom Kippur War, soaked in sweat and blood. The trauma of the Holocaust, still raw. Every attack is not just a crisis, it's a test. Can we defend ourselves? Are we still a nation of the living? Let's meet the main characters of this story. Hijackings in the 1970s were almost routine. But this time, it was different. The hijackers weren't just fighters. They were ideologues, actors in the theater of global revolution. Brigitte Kuhlmann and Wilfried Böse, Germans raised in the shadow of Auschwitz. They want to erase the shame, but they do it by pointing guns at Jewish faces. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, External Operations, a Palestinian organization linked to the Soviet bloc, operating like a Western-style PR agency of death. They want to force the release of 53 terrorists from prisons in Israel, Germany, Switzerland, Kenya, and France. But the hijackers aren't flying to countries with institutions. They're flying where the state is the whim of one man. Let's move from Athens to Africa to Uganda. Let's meet Idi Amin, Uganda, Entebbe Airport. Built by Israeli engineers from the company Solel Bonnet, now in the hands of a man who hates everything European unless it pays. Idi Amin Dada, former boxer, former army cook for the British, self-proclaimed King of Scotland and Field Marshal. He likes suits, honor guards, public executions. He welcomes the hijackers, gives them protection, becomes the host of the most dangerous waiting room in the world. Officially, he says, "I am protecting the passengers." Unofficially, he is holding them as bargaining chips. The world is watching. Cameras are rolling. Idi Amin loves a show. Israel doesn't have much time. Only a few days. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, a man torn inside. He knows what war means, but he also knows the weight of decisions. Defense Minister Shimon Peres, cold, brilliant, analytical. For him, this is not emotion. It's an equation. They send Mossad. They activate Sayeret Matkal. Planning begins for something that sounded then like a script for an action movie. Let's rebuild a Ugandan airport in Israel. At breakneck speed, the Israelis build a mock-up of Entebbe Airport and start training. Night landing drills, assault simulations, debriefings with released hostages, everything in secret, everything against the clock. Let's meet the future hero, Yoni Netanyahu, brother of Benjamin Netanyahu, a young, brilliant commander of the elite Sayeret Matkal. He studied at Harvard, wrote essays on morality and freedom. But he came back to Israel because philosophy is not enough when your people are dying. He is the one who will command the assault. He will be the first to enter the terminal. And he will be the only commando not to return from this mission. Back to the crisis on the ground. We will not wait. We will not negotiate. We will not allow Jews to be segregated and killed again under the world's eyes. That's what Israel's leaders say. We will build an impossible plan. We will fly by night. We will land at a foreign airport. We will kill the terrorists. We will take our people home. And we will come back. Or we won't come back at all. This won't be a war. It will be a spectacle of courage, logic, risk, and desperation. An operation that will change how the world looks at hijackings and negotiations. An operation that will create a legend. This is not a movie. This is not a myth. This is Operation Entebbe. Let's get to know it. To better understand the complex relations in the Middle East, not only in the 1970s, but especially today, when the news is full of rising tensions in this part of the world. Tel Aviv, June 27, 1976. They didn't know they were becoming part of a war. They boarded the plane as tourists. They disembarked as hostages. For some, it would be their last flight. For others, the beginning of the greatest risk of their lives. Ben Gurion Airport. Warm summer air, families returning from holidays, kids with plastic toy guns and suitcases bigger than they are. Flight 139, Air France. Tel Aviv, Athens, Paris. Airbus A300, nothing special. On board, 246 passengers, 12 crew members. Among them, 58 Israeli citizens. The rest, French, Germans, Brits, Americans. A mix of tourists, business travelers, everyday life. But history doesn't like everyday life. Stopover in Athens. The last passengers board. 4 of them don't look like tourists. 2 Palestinians from the PFLP, External Operations, 2 Germans from Revolutionary Cells, Revolutionäre Zellen, Brigitte Kuhlmann, and Wilfried Böse, with bags. In the bags, pistols, grenades, in their heads, a plan, and no one checks them. Athens airport in the 1970s is not Ben Gurion. No Israeli procedures, no psychological barriers. Security is fiction. The plane takes off. Everything seems normal. For the first few minutes. 12:30 p.m. Takeover. A scream, a gun, a grenade in someone's hand, a flight attendant with a barrel to her head. This is a hijack. Wilfried Böse stands in the aisle, aiming at the pilot. The terrorists storm the cockpit. They issue orders. Flight 139 is no longer flying to Paris. New route. Benghazi, Libya. At this moment, the era of comfort ends. The era begins in which every passenger becomes a bargaining chip. Benghazi is where they refuel and stage a show of force. Libya, 7 hours on the tarmac. The hijackers try to get fuel. One passenger is released. She fakes illness. But it's only a stopover. The target is not Libya. The target is Entebbe. The plane lands on the runway of the old Entebbe terminal. That same day, more terrorists join them. 7 in total, armed to the teeth. Idi Amin not only tolerates them, he welcomes them. He arrives with a military escort, takes photos, tells the hostages, "Don't be afraid. You are guests of Uganda. Nothing will happen to you." But then, something begins that everyone who was there remembers. The hostages are lined up in rows. Questions start. Who has an Israeli passport? Who is Jewish? Those who step forward are separated. A separate hall. More guards. Some are not Israeli citizens, but their names, their background, their faces are enough. For Holocaust survivors, it's déjà vu. Many will later say, it was like the ramp at Auschwitz. Again, they chose who lives and who doesn't. The demands, the release of 53 terrorists in exchange for the hostages' lives. The hijackers announce their conditions. Release prisoners from Israel, Germany, France, Switzerland, and Kenya. Deadline, July 1st. If not, executions. In Tel Aviv, fever starts. Prime Minister Rabin, Defense Minister Peres, the entire general staff. The press calls for negotiations. Families protest. But somewhere deep down, someone says, "We won't be selected ever again. This time we will choose when to strike." The hostages are held in a terminal that only one country truly knows. Designed and built in the 1960s by the Israeli company Solel Boneh. Mossad finds the blueprints. Analysis begins. Within 24 hours, a scale model is built. Commandos from Sayeret Matkal start training. No one yet knows that a plan is being born that will enter military, geopolitical, and leadership textbooks. Because in the shadow of a hijacked plane, terrified hostages, and a shocked Western world, from the Negev desert, 4 C-130 Hercules transport planes take off. They fly into the night. They fly for their own, to a place where time has stopped and human rights have been suspended until further notice. Entebbe. On the runway, 100 hostages. In the tower, a madman in uniform. And all around, a world pretending not to see. Entebbe airport was old, worn out, abandoned. It hadn't handled commercial flights in years, but it had everything the hijackers needed. A terminal with walls as thick as diplomatic silence, Ugandan military close by, the protection of one man, Idi Amin. Idi Amin was not a host by accident. He loved being at the center. A showman of dictatorship, he appears in person at the terminal, greets the hostages, pats children on the head, takes pictures. "You are my guests, I will protect you." Protect from whom? He's the one holding the keys to the cell. Officially, he says he is a mediator for peace. Unofficially, he sells time to the terrorists. Every day means more cameras, more speeches, more shows of force. Uganda will not allow violence, says Amin, with a firing squad standing behind him. When the world asks what is happening to the hostages, he says they are safe. But the hostages get water once a day. Some sleep on concrete, others are beaten. This is no longer a hijacking. It is house arrest, African dictatorship style. The terrorists and Ugandan soldiers keep sorting. Jew to a separate room. Israeli to strict control. The rest? They wait. After a few days, 148 non-Israeli hostages are released. They fly to Paris. The rest, 94 people, including the entire Air France crew who refused to abandon the passengers, stay. And now, the real drama begins. Those who remain know they may die. How does the world react? France says thank you for releasing its citizens. Germany quietly admits it has a problem with its own history. The United Nations issues a statement about the need for dialogue. The United States works the problem through diplomacy. Israel counts the hours. Rabin and Perez know time is on the hijackers' side, but they also have an ace up their sleeve. The terminal's construction plans. A terminal that was once a symbol of Israeli-Ugandan cooperation will now become a place of death or rescue. What about Solel Boneh? Solel Boneh, the Israeli construction firm that built the terminal in the 1960s, provides precise architectural drawings. On that basis, in a secret facility in the Negev, a full-scale mock-up is built. Every meter of wall, every door, every corridor is mapped. Israeli intelligence reconstructs the guard shifts, Ugandan patrol routes, reaction times. This is no longer an emergency plan, it's a battle scenario. Inside the government, there is a war of its own. Prime Minister Rabin leans toward negotiations. He knows what stubbornness costs. He commanded in the Yom Kippur War. Shimon Peres the opposite. He says, if you bend once, you'll bend forever. In the end, intelligence data decides, blueprints confirmed, guard positions confirmed, and one word that changes everything. We can do it. The airport, the hostages, Ugandan soldiers with fingers on triggers, hijackers still sure they're winning. Idi Amin preparing for a press conference to proclaim the triumph of his peace mission. But at the same time, somewhere over the Red Sea, 4 Hercules fly in silence, just above the desert sand. They fly into the dark. They fly for their people. This is the moment Israel tells the world, if you can't act, we will, alone, quietly, at night, on the other side of the world. The last day, the clock is ticking. In the terminal, hostages still cut off from information. They don't know what's happening. They don't know a decision has already been made. They don't know Israel won't send a letter. It will send Hercules. In one of the underground bunkers, a last chance meeting is held. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin sits in silence. Defense Minister Shimon Peres says, if we don't do this now, we will lose not only the hostages, we will lose Israel. The generals speak too. General Dan Shamron, Colonel Ehud Barak, and the leaders of Sayeret Matkal. The plan is ready. Risk. Absolute. The plan of Operation Thunderbolt, later renamed Operation Yonatan, looked like this. Official name, Operation Thunderbolt, later renamed Mivtza Yonatan, in honor of the fallen commander, Yoni Netanyahu. A plan as sharp as a razor. 4 C-130 Hercules transport planes fly from Ben Gurion Airport to Entebbe. About 100 commandos from Sayeret Matkal and supporting units. On board, a black Mercedes identical to the one Idi Amin uses. Goal: fool the guards, drive up to the terminal, surprise the terrorists, free the hostages, and return alive. If it works. Technical details. Distance: over 4,000 kilometers. Flight time: about 7 hours. Route: Israel, Red Sea, Ethiopian airspace, Kenya, Uganda. Altitude: extremely low to avoid radar. Communication: radio silence. Fuel: just enough for the flight in and the escape. Some aircraft will have to land in Nairobi, if Kenya agrees. Kenya agrees quietly, with the help of Israeli agents and the implied threat of future consequences. Even so, it's a flight without precedent. This is not a bomber raid. It is the surgical teleportation of a special forces unit into the enemy's heart. Let's go back to the mock-up once more. In the Negev, they built a full-scale replica of the terminal. The commandos drill entries, reaction times, shooting patterns. Every meter, every turn, every rifle butt strike is rehearsed. They know where the terrorists stand. They know where the hostages sleep. They know the margin of error is 10 seconds. They train with dummy children, with lights on, with lights off, with resistance, without. Yoni Netanyahu says one thing only. We go in, we pull them out, we come back, or we don't come back at all. 11 p.m. Ugandan time. Darkness. Fog. The Entebbe terminal throbs with fear and exhaustion. The hostages aren't sleeping. The hijackers feel like masters of fate. Ugandan soldiers patrol outside. In the control tower, boredom and cigarettes. And then, the radar blips. Low. Too fast, too quiet. This is not a passenger plane. This is something bigger, a C-130. And another, and another, and another. Operation Maivtza Yonatan is starting. The night of July 3rd to 4th. A C-130. Hercules lands at Entebbe like a ghost. No lights, no radio, no clearance. The other three follow. The engines drone low. The tarmac is empty. The control tower doesn't react, or doesn't have time. From the aircraft roll out a black Mercedes and 2 Land Rovers. Exactly like the ones Idi Amin uses. Even with Ugandan flags on the hood, the Israelis recreated his convoy with surgical precision. Inside, commandos from Sayeret Matkal, Israel's top special forces. At the front, Yoni Netanyahu. The plan was devilishly simple. Confuse the Ugandan guards. Pretend Amin is coming back from a night out. Drive up to the terminal before the first shot. And it works. Until it doesn't. 2 Ugandan soldiers don't buy the illusion. They shout. They approach with their weapons. Fire! The Israelis shoot with silenced guns. The 2 soldiers drop. The surprise is over. The real battle begins. The commandos push through the main doors of the terminal. A sprint. A yell. Down! Israel Defense Forces, Israeli Army, in Hebrew and English. The hostages, confused. Some jump to their feet, others stay on the floor. The terrorists open fire. Someone grabs a hostage as a shield. Someone else prepares to throw a grenade. But the Israeli commandos are faster. Within 90 seconds, all the hijackers are dead. The cost? 1 man. During the action, outside the terminal, the commander, Yoni Netanyahu, is covering the entry. A sniper's bullet, probably from a Ugandan soldier, hits him in the chest. He dies. A legend in real time. The brother of the man who will one day lead the country, Benjamin Netanyahu. He is the only Israeli commando killed that night, and that's why the operation will bear his name. Operation Yonatan. Meanwhile, other commando groups secure the runway. Another team destroys 11 Ugandan MiG fighter jets to prevent pursuit. Medics treat wounded hostages. And at the back of the plane, the loading ramps are already open. The entire operation, from landing to takeoff, lasts 56 minutes. The heart of it, freeing the hostages, less than 2 minutes. In Europe, night. In New York, quiet. In Entebbe, chaos. Idi Amin wakes up too late. His palace, his terminal, his theater have been taken, exposed, and shattered. There were no negotiations, no CNN cameras. There was a plan, and people ready to die to remind the world that human life is not a bargaining chip in a power game. The Mercedes was black, but inside, light was riding. Israel had just won, not only militarily, it had won morally. And now it was time to escape, because this was only half the journey. In summary, it was Sunday, July 4th. America was celebrating independence. And in Entebbe, Israel sent its men to remind the world that not everyone can celebrate freedom when their children sit with a gun to their head. Entebbe was not just an operation. It was a political decision, a manifesto of strength, and an answer to the question Ukrainians, Armenians, and Kurds ask today, will anyone come for me? France looked away. Uganda sold its airspace for the promise of silence. The UN debated. Israel acted. For some it was reckless. For others, desperate. But history will remember it differently, as the moment when a small state threw down a gauntlet to the world. And won. In that hall in Entebbe, baggage was left behind, destroyed seats, bullet holes, and the blood of Yonatan Netanyahu, the Prime Minister's brother, the commander who didn't return. But thanks to him, 100 hostages did. They came back with eyes wide open, because they had seen not only death, they had seen something worse, how deeply the world can choose to stay passive. Today, Entebbe no longer looks like that terminal. But the questions remain. Has the West learned anything? Today, would anyone risk their soldiers' lives to save someone else's citizens? Can a nation-state really guarantee your safety, or is it just an illusion? And the most important one, if tomorrow someone hijacks your family, will anyone take off for you? Or will you only hear what we heard before they blew the doors? We're negotiating. Please wait. If this story moved you, hit subscribe. If you want more episodes like this, leave a like and share. Because this story is not just about Israel. It's about every place on earth where someone still believes that no one should be left alone.